All right, good afternoon and welcome. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, thank you for joining us for this candidate forum. As many of you know, the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 by leaders of the women's suffrage movement. For more than a century, the League has been bipartisan, a grassroots organization focused on encouraging informed participation in government. By bringing candidates together in a fair, neutral setting, forums can help ensure that voters can compare perspectives, ask questions, and make informed choices at the ballot box, which is all an essential part of a healthy democracy. So we are pleased to provide this opportunity for civic engagement and thank all the candidates for participating, and thank you for participating in this important process. And I'll now turn it over to our partner, Susan Dunn of Silence is Not an Option.
Sorry to be slow. You'll be glad to know I was turning the air conditioning back on. Didn't want you to suffer for the rest of the afternoon. Yeah, I'm Susan Dunn, and I'm with Silence is Not an Option, which is a little bit different than the League of Women Voters, and it's only been in existence for 13 months. And it's highly unorganized. It's a group of people who really felt like they needed to get together to be able to talk about our democracy, Constitution, rule of law, and learn about the issues that we need to know about. So over the 13 months, we gather at least once a month right here on Saturday, and we learn all kinds of things. But one of the things we've been very interested in is the voting process, and so we're very happy to be part of this candidates forum. I'm also a member of Circular Church, which opens its doors for these kinds of meetings for the community, because we really think, one, the space deserves to be used. It's a beautiful space. But also we're really committed to a community that builds connections, that learns from one another, and supports civil dialogue. A few housekeeping things. There's one bathroom in the back. There are two bathrooms right through this door, through the archway of the building that's really right next door. It's not a long way. It's good if you turn your cell phones off, or at least silence them. And if you parked in the bank parking lot, you really have to pay to be there. If you don't pay, then sometimes they ticket you, sometimes they boot you. It's a wild combination of what happens. But thank you so much for being here, and we're really honored to have all of you candidates here, and we're eager to hear what you have to say.
So now we'll turn it over to Gavin Jackson, who was so gracious to come in and serve as our moderator.
Appreciate it. Again, welcome to church, everybody. Welcome. Like I said, I'm used to being in a studio. It's a little bit different, but I appreciate everyone being here. I'm Gavin Jackson, host of This Week in South Carolina and the South Carolina Lead podcast. It's on SCE TV and public radio. And I'm also your moderator for this Republican, it says Democratic, but it's Republican primary forum that we're having today. We had that Democratic one earlier, and this is also sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Charleston area, and Silence is Not an Option. Can you not hear me?
Francis, can you check his microphone,
do I need to turn
please?
up? Gotta get closer. I like my old microphone. What happened to that? Is that better, folks? Yeah. And SINO we were talking about. So this is a candidate forum. It's not a debate. It's an opportunity for candidates to share their platforms and for voters to educate themselves like you're doing today. If you stuck around from the morning forum, welcome back. We are happy to have you here. We are also live streaming this as well. So if any of the candidates watched the live stream from earlier today, you already know the questions. Shocker, surprise. So you're already ready. But we'll have this on YouTube, and you can watch it later again as well. So it's out there for folks who aren't with us today. Now, the League of Women Voters and SINO are nonpartisan organizations, and they have not endorsed any candidate. This is a nonpartisan event, and on June 9th, as far as we know right now, voters who ask for a Republican ballot will choose one person they want to send to the general election in November. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives serve 2-year terms, and all candidates running in this primary were invited to this forum, and here are the candidates participating today. We have Kendall Ludden, Tyler Dykes, Logan Cunningham, Jay Byers, and Cindy Riley with us. Welcome to you all. Candidates will have 60 seconds for an opening statement, and typically candidates will use these opening statements to highlight their readiness for the office and the top issues that they support. We will start with Mr. Ludden after I finish giving an overall format of this forum for the next hour or so. And candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to questions in rotating order by seat location. The first of those will be directed to Mr. Dykes, and then it'll go down the line, and we'll change it up as it goes. And candidates may take an additional 30 seconds for rebuttals. I'll be the one who determines that. It's at my discretion. Usually we're going to save those in case someone says something directly about another candidate, not about what another candidate said when it comes to their stance. That's why you have 90 seconds to make your statements there. And the questions were collected from members of the League of Women Voters and SINO and myself, and then time permitting, we'll ask for a few questions from the audience. So if you have a card with you, feel free to write down a question. I know we didn't really have too much of a chance to get to them last time, but we have one less person on stage, so we will probably have that opportunity today. And then midway through, we'll ask you to hold up your cards, and we'll have some volunteers come around and collect those so we can present them later. And no questions will be asked by the moderator that are directed to only one candidate or anyone of a personal nature, so I'm not going to be attacking you. Now, each candidate will have 60 seconds for a closing statement, and then to keep the flow of our forum moving, we have our official timekeeper with, is it Judy Pepper? Judy? Yeah, Judy, okay. Judy will keep you in line. There's the stop sign. That's the most important one. Let's not make Judy mad, okay? And we were really good in the first forum doing that, so let's keep with that. So that being said, welcome to you all, and we will start with Mr. Ludden to give us your opening statement.
Hello, hello. My name is Kendall Ludden. I'm a new American patriot and anti-politician. I'm a Ron Paul Republican. I'm also a CPA, and I'm an attorney, so I'm uniquely qualified to read the books and understand and cut taxes and spending. As an attorney, I can understand the law, and in a minute, I can dissect it into minute pieces and make it constitutional again. I believe the U.S. economy sucks, and what we need to do is we need to have the economy of us or community. The worst thing that can ever happen to you is somebody knocks on the door and they say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I understand the Bill of Rights and your enumerated rights, and I can help you defend them, and I pray for your vote for Republican candidate in District 1, South Carolina. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Dykes. I am one of the candidates up here, of course, running to replace the retiring Nancy Mace. And I'm also one of the few candidates standing on this stage willing to go up against this administration in several key areas. One of those areas is this blockade against Iran that is costing $500 million a day in order to carry out. For 5 days of that expense, we could completely fix all of I-526, completely fix all of the infrastructure for the entirety of our district. And so even though some of you here may be more on the liberal side, even though some of you here could never see yourself voting for a Republican, I highly encourage you to vote for me to be the Republican nominee, because there's not a single other Republican that is willing to stand up and come against some of the excesses of not only this administration, but the failures of the Republican Party as a whole. I am a United States Marine Corps veteran. I served honorably, and I exited the Marine Corps and began my own business. And so through all of this, I am fighting for us, the American people. Thank you. Tyler Dykes.
Logan Cunningham. I'm from Beaufort County. I'm a former educator. I currently run a business where we employ about 120 people, 50 to 60 right here in the Low Country. And I'm on my 6th year on Beaufort County Council. When I first got elected, I was the youngest council member ever in the state of South Carolina at 27 years old. And to that point, we've accomplished a lot of things, from our teachers going from the lowest paid in the state of South Carolina to the highest paid in the state of South Carolina without raising our taxes a dime. We've invested in our infrastructure and actually got our Hilton Head Bridge funded after 25 years of being kicked down the road, and made the state pay for over 75% of that, not our local taxpayers. And then lastly, I was the chairman of the Green Space referendum, which so far in the past 12 months has protected over 14,000 acres in Beaufort County, with only raising a penny sales tax for 18 months. We've chaired that to leverage it to $400 million in Beaufort County. We're the first county in the state of South Carolina to accomplish that. And it's one of my accomplishments I was proud to do. As we move forward in this campaign, you'll see how I can take my results on the county level all the way to Washington. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Byers, and I have been serving our community for the last 25 years, both as a public school teacher, as a small business owner, and the last 16 years on Dorchester County Council. I'm married to Amber, a beautiful wife. I got 2 beautiful daughters living their best life at Clemson, and I have seen firsthand the affordability crisis up front. I am a mortgage banker by trade. On Dorchester County Council, we have focused on building roads, building brand new county parks that were never in existence before. I led the initiative on that. We've got a new green space referendum. We also built 2 brand new libraries. For me, this race is about making America first by taking care of home. Everybody's tired of the drama. It's not doing anything to make traffic better. For me, I realize that we don't have the resources to fix our problems by ourselves. We need a partner in Congress who will answer the call and help get things done to actually make sure that we're taking care of our constituents here in the Lowcountry, throughout the Lowcountry. Regardless of what side of the political line you lean on, we want to make sure that we're taking care of home. So for me, this is going to be all about taking care of our families and the Lowcountry. That's how we put America first.
Is it Titan? Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Wagers Riley. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm not a politician, so I'm the only one up here that's got the notes, right? I was born and raised in Dorchester County. I am running because your health care is absolutely awful, and I don't think you really know that. I've been uniquely fortunate enough to have health care provided for me in both Indonesia and in Paris, France, and it was better in a third world country than it is here in the United States. And that was 1999. And I think it's time that we actually send somebody to fix health care that knows the problems with health care. Health care in this country is awful. I believe in small government, and I don't think we have to increase government in order to deliver on that health care. I believe in better education. I have 5 core principles that I was raised with. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, be nice, and make your mama proud, and I will die on that hill. Thank you very much.
Now, all candidates who could not attend were given the option to submit an opening statement in writing, and Mark Smith did submit one, and Jerry's going to read it for us.
My name is Mark Smith, and I'm running for Congress because I believe the people of the Lowcountry deserve a representative who will fight for our values with integrity, consistency, and conviction. Throughout my time in the State House, I have stood firmly for conservative principles, defending life, supporting law enforcement, protecting taxpayers, and putting South Carolina families first. Washington doesn't need more politicians chasing headlines or empty talking points. It needs leaders willing to do the hard work, tell the truth, and stand up for the people they serve. That's exactly what I've done in Columbia, and it's exactly what I will continue to do in Congress. As a 4th-generation Lowcountry native, I understand firsthand the challenges and opportunities facing our communities because this is home. I raised my family here, built my business here, and have dedicated my life to serving people here. As a 1st-generation small business owner, I know what it takes to create jobs, meet a payroll, navigate the burdens of coming out of Washington. That's why I'm committed to fighting for policies that will keep our economy strong and allow small businesses to thrive.
Had to cut her off there, Judy. You hate to see it. That being said, yeah, well, that was great opening statements from everyone there. We're going to start the first question to Mr. Dykes. We are experiencing a push for mid-cycle redistricting strictly for partisan purposes in several states, including right here in South Carolina and District 1. Do you support federal legislation mandating states establish nonpartisan redistricting commissions? Do you support the outlawing of gerrymandering? And then also, what are your thoughts on the current push here in the state?
Sure thing. So I would be more than happy to take it up to the federal level to stop all gerrymandering, both for the Republican-held states and the Democrat-held states. On a lot of levels, it's very unfair the way we try to group people together to get a very specific outcome. But as long as the more leftist and Democrat-leaning states are doing it, I fully support our state here at home doing the same thing. Until such a point in which we stop it at the federal level and stop it in its entirety, we should continue to do it at home. Once we can stop it for everyone, then we can focus on more nonpartisan guidelines. That is my perspective.
Mr. Carnahan?
Thank you. Until we have a fair playing field in all 50 states, we have to continue to fight the same fight. So if we're going to continue to have states gerrymandering, redistricting here, which clearly affects every single one of us up here, I've told people the same answer every time. My job is to focus on the people I represent, whether it's the county level or the federal level. It's low country first. Same thing with my campaign. I'm not worried about other candidates are doing. I'm not worried about what people at the state house are doing and how they're going to vote. My job is to focus on my candidacy and put the people that I represent first, and that's what my focus is going to be on. They're the ones that have to take up that decision currently. So if they're going to redistrict us, it's going to happen whether we like it or not, vice versa. But until the federal government mandates that down, it's going to be held at that state level. So if you're going to have the liberal states do it, or conservative states are going to have to do it too. But I would like to see a mandate at the federal level to ban all gerrymandering. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a really great video on YouTube with Michael Douglas talking about this issue, talking about that there are only about 45 seats in Congress that are competitive in the general election. The rest of them are very safe Republican or very safe Democratic seats. We do need to go to a nonpartisan drawing of the lines based on community. That is part of what's drawing a lot of division in America. I think we need to actually fix that. Currently, with the current map, I'm good with the current map, and I'll tell you why. Looking at the map, it makes Dorchester County whole, Colleton County whole, Beaufort County whole, Jasper County whole, and Southern Charleston County. This is a district that has a lot in common together. Currently, the way the map's drawn in my county council district, I've got people in neighborhoods that are split down the middle between Jim Clyburn's district and Nancy Mace's district. I have constituents call me all the time trying to figure out who they're supposed to vote for. That's not building communities. I like the idea of nonpartisanship. I like the idea of the current maps. I support the current map because I think that it actually is good for the low country. Charleston, I know, is a little upset, but you would have 2 Congress people that are looking out for Charleston, and I think that's pretty important. But I also think it's really important that we start drawing counties together that have similarities. They've got similar issues because we've all got to be able to work together as a community. Our lines, our challenges do not stop at a dotted line on a map. We've got to be able to work together to get it done. Thank you.
I really wish we would put a grid on the state and let it fall, let the population fall where it falls. I do like the idea of keeping counties together, specifically counties that are invested in one another. With Charleston, it's Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester. And those 3 counties have worked together. You can pair up Orangeburg, Calhoun, throw some of Richland in there. But they haven't given me the crown and the scepter yet, so I don't get to make those decisions. That being said, I will represent whoever my constituent is. I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care what race you are, I don't care what sex you are. It doesn't matter to me. You elected me, and if I represent you, I represent you. I think waiting to the last minute to do this redistricting is not in good faith. But again, I don't have the crown and the scepter, so yet. So thank you very much.
Well, I believe in the community, as was mentioned here, and it's not even the last minute. It's overtime when they're doing this. I ran for the redistricted Senate seat 20 in Charleston, and it was mind-blowing to me that Charleston is the largest city in South Carolina, and out of the 46 districts, it just got its own. And it's split off from Columbia, the 2nd largest city. So, you know, the gerrymandering and all kinds of stuff like that, I don't agree. And I don't think the judiciary should be stepping in, and I don't think it should be in flux. What is going to happen with our election? You shouldn't change the game in the middle of the game. It should be done at the beginning and not in the middle. We shouldn't be going to overtime. And I believe the way it is good. I mean, putting Mount Pleasant with Myrtle Beach, what little I know about South Carolina, I know it doesn't make sense at all. Mount Pleasant is part of Charleston, and it shouldn't be with Myrtle Beach. Thank you.
the second question, we start with Mr. Cunningham. Which House committees and subcommittees do you plan to request to sit on? Which caucuses, which are voluntary groups of lawmakers, are you interested in exploring and perhaps joining? And how will these memberships help District 1?
Yeah, it's clearly going to be the biggest need of the Low Country, the transportation and infrastructure. It's from Beaufort County to Charleston County, we know we have a problem with our roads. We know we have a problem with funding for our roads, whether it's a state gatekeeping the money or the federal government. But putting that burden on our taxpayers is where we have to step up. So if I could be on that committee to actually allocate those funds directly to our communities, then that's how we can get things accomplished in the Low Country. And I've told people before, what makes me different as a candidate is I have gotten things across the finish line when people have told me no. And I've done that with working with different groups, not just politicians, but the SCDOT. They put in $120 million for our Hilton Head Bridge. The State Infrastructure Bank put in $120 million for our bridge because we worked and continued to advocate and did not take no for an answer. They had the money the whole time. We could have gotten that project done for half the amount if it didn't get kicked down the road for 25 years. So I've had proven results to work with these organizations, work with these groups, but I'm the type of person that's going to be in a room like this. I'm going to be in a county council chamber. I'm going to be in the municipalities continuing to work with the delegation and elected officials locally to actually know what the direct needs are in the community. That's why I ran to begin with. I helped on other campaigns, saw things weren't getting done in my hometown. So that's why I quit teaching to run my first campaign when I was 26 years old. So I have proven results on that, and that's why I want to make sure that I stay on that committee to actually make an impact here in our day-to-day lives.
So after serving on Dorchester County Council for the last 16 years, one of the conclusions I've come to is that we just don't have the tools in the shed to be able to solve our problems by ourselves. We need a partner. Building roads in the Low Country sometimes feels like I'm using a hammer to try to plow a field. We're not getting anywhere. It takes too long to get things done. One of the things that I want to do, we've already been to DC and met with T&I, the Transportation and Infrastructure. We need help there. We need to be able to bring resources home. We're sending a lot of money to DC. We're not bringing enough home. After 16 years, I've seen that locally. Dorchester County Council, we just passed a new transportation sales tax. We're going to raise $700 million. We have over $3 billion worth of road needs today. Charleston County, you're going to raise $4.5 billion. You've got over $40 billion of road needs. Roads here are expensive to build. Bridges. We've got bad soil. We need someone who's going to go up there and actually focus on home, which is my whole reason for running. I'm giving up a job I love. I love Dorchester County Council. We're going to build more parks that I would love to be a part of, but I feel like it's time to step up and see, can we have a partner that when the local governments call or when the constituents call, they actually answer the phone, they roll up their sleeves and get things done. One of the roads that we had built in Somerville, Berlin G. Myers Parkway, took 20 years to get permitted through the Corps of Engineers. Went from a $45 million road to a $153 million road because nobody was paying attention. I'm going to be paying attention, rolling up my sleeves at the desk to get it done so that we don't pay 3 times what a road is worth and wait 20 years to get it done.
Y'all could probably guess this, healthcare. I want to be on the medical committee. In South Carolina, they call it the 3M committee. I'm not sure what they call it up in Washington, but you don't have to worry. I'd find out in about 20 minutes. That's what I would push to get on, because again, your health care is awful. You just don't know it. And Council on Aging. Our folks are getting older. Baby boomers are going into nursing homes. They're not getting the health care they need. It gets pushed down the road. Medicare is busting at the seams, and it's just going to get worse. Somebody needs to do something about that. That needs to be worked up financially. I can do that. Thank you.
The education is based upon an 1880s system in Prussia where people sit in a room and they get taught things, and they get taught to get a job. And what a job stands for is just over broke. I have a nonprofit that does alternative education. Also, I'd be on the budgeting and tax committee. As a CPA, I can be the forensic accountant for the government and Congress and make sure I can find no fraud, I can find no waste, and I can eradicate it. And as an attorney, I did a lot of family law mediations. I can be bipartisan, get both parties together. Finally, I'd like to be on a judicial committee. As I mentioned, the judiciary just came in and basically destroyed what's going on. I've been to court so many times where you go to court and nothing gets decided and you come back in 2 months. I can mediate divorces if people want to get happily divorced. I can do that. You just have to come together, and I can help bring people together with my skills as an accountant and an attorney. Thank you.
I fully intend for the moment that I get to Congress to join Thomas Massey's Freedom Caucus. He is one of the very few people that is currently sitting in office that is principled and actually fights for what he believes in, regardless of the party lines, and getting the Epstein class exposed, pulling us out of the war, and actually fixing our tax system. And so it is part of that effort, as part of the Freedom Caucus, that I hope to join. I also would like to be on the Armed Services Committee, to be able to help make the laws to pass things like the War Power Resolution Act, to pull us out of the Middle East, victorious, bring our troops home, and let's get focused back to improving the lives of the average person right here in America. That, first and foremost, is my priority. Not this side or the other, but the American people. Thank you.
Mr. Byers, you're going to start off the third question for us. We are interested in learning about why you are running, especially at a time when Congress is struggling. Recent Gallup polling shows that roughly 86% of Americans disapprove of Congress's performance. It's one of the highest levels of disapproval on record. At the same time, the U.S. Capitol Police report that thousands of credible threats each year against members of Congress and their families and staff, which underscores the personal risks of the job. Why are you motivated to join the Congress at a time when political polarization is so high and public trust in Congress is so low? And what can one member do to change these trends?
Thank you for that. That's a great question, and I ask myself that often. When I called Sheriff Knight in Dorchester County and told him what I was doing, he said, "Jay, what in the heck do you want to get up there in that mess for?" And he was being real, and I thought about it for a long time, and I said, well, if we don't try to do better, we're stuck with what we got. I love this country. I love being able to talk to neighbors, even people that I disagree with, especially people I disagree with. I think it's great for us to be able to challenge one another and challenge our prejudices and challenge our belief system and be able to stand firm on that. We've lost that in America. For me, this is about taking care of home. I cannot stress that enough. I love the job I have now. I love the fact that we're going to do great things in Dorchester County, and we've done those for 16 years, and I was a driving force making that happen. But I realize we just don't have the tools to fix things. I think if we can start electing people that want to go up there and take care of home, that want to have cordial and respectful conversations again, and be able to debate something over a table and then go get a beer and pizza afterwards, our country will come a long way into healing itself. We need to start talking to each other like Americans again. I'm running for Congress to serve our community first, but I also want to I hope that we can start moving the needle to be able to save America from the demise that we are currently headed down.
I'm running because 86% of the country is dissatisfied with Congress, right? Nobody likes what's being done up there, and I'm not a politician, so I'm a new face. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, be nice, and make your mama proud. I will die on that hill. That's just basic civility, and I don't think that exists in Washington anymore. I don't think people communicate. I think it's all done through the media, and it's what he said, she said, and nobody said anything, and by the time it's over with, it's all blown up like a nuclear reaction. It's a shame. People aren't adults anymore. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Communication is something that I've been doing for 38 years. I communicate with people that are hallucinating. I've communicated with prisoners. I've communicated with people who are in crisis. I know how to de-escalate. I know how to go in and carry on a conversation with pretty much anybody and get them to tell me how we can meet in the middle. So that's why I'm running. My husband thinks I'm a little on the side because 60 years old, he's retired, and he's like, "Baby, why are you doing this to me?" You know, because somebody needs to do it. Somebody has to step up and do it, and nobody's stepping up. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
When I was 16 years old, my uncle was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, and he explained to me a big problem. He swore to uphold the Constitution without ever reading the damn thing. I think we can make America great again by making America constitutional again. I think everybody needs to spend an hour and read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the amendments. A couple of things in there that, destroyed the country in 1913, which is the IRS and people voting for state senators. The states have no say in the government anymore, and the Federal Reserve Act was passed. And I don't know much about the Federal Reserve with all my education, but I know three things. Number one, it's not federal. It's an illegal banking cartel. Number two, it's not reserve. Any economist who thinks they can artificially manipulate an economy is practicing Keynesian economics, and modern monetary theory will never work. And there is no reserve. So I believe if we can take an hour and everybody reads the Constitution, understands the rules of the game, and we could decide if the rules need to change. But this country needs to follow the Constitution. Thank you.
When I served in the United States Marine Corps, I accepted the reality of death, the reality that I would have to face danger if I was ever deployed. And I accept that exact same responsibility now that I am running for Congress. There's always going to be threats. There are always going to be people that don't like you. But the important thing is to keep fighting for our people, the American people, anyways. And one man can never get anything done by yourself, by himself, by herself. One woman, you can't do it alone. That is why each and every single one of us coming together to fight back against the corruption is so important. Congress has an abysmal approval rating because they don't actually represent you. They don't represent me. They represent themselves and the big international donors that pay them millions of dollars in order to push their agenda, not our agenda. And so I fully intend when I get to Congress to join up with each and every single other congressman that is willing to fight back against that corruption and do so with the same tenacity that I learned and the discipline I learned when I was in the United States Marine Corps. Thank you.
I got asked this question when I was 26. My family thought I was out of my mind. And we probably all are, every single one of us. It's a very thankless job, but it's only a thankless job if you're not bringing results. I was asked about a year ago if I was going to run for this position in our area, and they were encouraging me, and I told them probably not. I love what I do on county council. I love my job and my day-to-day life. I've been very blessed. I saw candidates come out announcing they were running, and I saw it was the same playbook that cost us elections before. I'm a product of the new movement of the Republican Party. We re-engaged the youth and re-engaged the working class that was lost. We got outmaneuvered for years by the Democratic Party, and we deserve to lose those races. I'm a product of turning that around. Now, the difference between me and other candidates, and why I'll tell you why Congress has the rating they have, because every single one of them up there is taking endorsements from elected officials and taking money from PACs. I have rejected every single dime from PACs and every single endorsement to make sure that I don't have to represent anybody in Washington but people in the room like this. We have to get things done. For me to be able to accomplish things on the county council level, I couldn't be purchased and couldn't be bought there either. You have to work with people to get it across the finish line, but you don't have to owe them anything, so you don't have to sacrifice anything. And that's why I'm doing this, because I believe in this area. I do believe in America first, but I also believe in putting the low country first. We have been neglected for years by not only our state, but the federal government. Think about the resources we have here in the low country that we've been neglected on. And I'm here to make sure that I don't owe anybody anything, to make sure that I can actually bring results to the low country. Thank you.
Ms. Riley, do you believe the War Powers Resolution of 1973 is constitutional, and do you believe that it is an effective limit on presidential authority to deploy U.S. armed forces without congressional approval? Please explain your reasoning.
I can honestly tell you I have absolutely zero idea, and I want to take that question home, and I will research it, and I will figure out what my opinion is. I will put it on my website, CindyWRileyForCongress.com. I am not ashamed to say, I don't know, but I am determined to find out. So if I can have a copy of that question, take a picture of it, I'd love it.
How about maybe just Congress's role in oversight over the president deploying folks overseas?
Congress gave up a lot of its power, and it really needs to take a lot of it back. And it seems to be doing it regularly, and I don't understand that. I think there's a lot of No, Congress needs to take its power back. I'm going to be Southern and nice with that. Congress needs to take its power back.
We have a welfare state and a warfare state. We really shouldn't be in very many wars in this country at all. We have the greatest protection in the world. It's called the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. We have our own resources. We can be independent. As a kid, I used to play the game Risk, and North America was hard because there was only 3 ways in. We have issues with Mexico, and the main issue there is because of the war on drugs, and a lot of people are in jail because of drugs. As far as wars go, Congress should be declaring war, and I don't think we should have been in very many wars at all. We live in a welfare state and a warfare state, and that needs to change in order to make America great again. Thank you.
If I had known that this was going to be one of the questions, I wouldn't have answered it already in my opening statement. I believe I've made my position very clear. I absolutely support the War Powers Resolution Act. It should be Congress declaring war, because the last time Congress actually did declare war was World War II, something like 80 years before most of us were even born. And so, no, we should not be involved in any of these foreign wars. And more importantly than that, the focus should be on the American people. I supported Trump so heavily in 2024, in no small part because of the promise he made, no new wars. I am still committed to that to this day, to bringing the troops home, to limiting our involvement in the Middle East, and bringing our people back. And like you were just saying, we have 2 giant oceans and 2 weak militarily neighbors. Canada and Mexico are not going to be invading us with armed forces anytime soon. We have the greatest navy that the world has ever seen. So I say let's use that navy to patrol our coastline. Let's use that navy to help repair our infrastructure, bring the troops home, and focus on the American people. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a big supporter of President Trump, and I still am to this day. The thing about President Trump is not only is it no new wars, but it's also ending other wars that can threaten our country. Now, the question with Congress. Congress does have its role in declaring war, but I do believe our administration cannot call a session every single time we need to make a quick decision if they see an opportunity. Now, do I want to be sitting in Iran for 90 days? No, I do not. Do I want soldiers on the ground? Absolutely not. No boots on the ground in Iran. I've been very clear and upfront about that. But Congress gave up a lot of their power. The other side of that, too, is the media wants to weaponize this as well for us to be fighting against each other. The same war power Trump is using right now, the last 7 presidents have all used as well. It's not a secret, but people want to act like they forget that happened. So if you're going to make that argument, we need to make that argument across the entire spectrum of remove the party lines, hold our president accountable. Congress needs to have a backbone. The other problem with Congress as well, horrible approval rating. We have a Republican majority in Congress right now, and we're still not pushing the Trump agenda across the finish line. That's embarrassing. The one thing I'll tell you about the Democrats is they did not hold back when it was time. When Obama was in office and they wanted something pushed across the finish line and they had it, they did not stop till it was done. Our Republicans have failed us, and that's why their approval rating is the way it is right now. Thank you.
So I think we can all agree that Congress is pretty broken, and Congress abdicated their responsibility with containing the executive decades ago. But in order for this to actually work, we've got to have a Congress that actually loves America, and they're willing to work with the president regardless of party. And right now, we are so divided that people are more interested in coming out and taking selfie videos after they get an intelligence briefing than they are about actually making sure they're keeping America safe. That's a real problem, and that's a cultural problem we've got to fix. I do believe in what we're doing in Iran right now. This is 47 years overdue. I remember growing up in Lyman, South Carolina, and people having yellow ribbons tied around their trees for over a year until we got everybody home. That stuck with me. And we've been dealing with that menace and that evil ever since. Let's put it to bed. But what it's also doing is it's weakening our #1 international adversary, which is China. We have to put our eye on the ball there, keep China in our sights, because as we saw this week, the president went and met with the Chinese. They are more interested in overtaking us as the sole superpower in the world, and they do not care about our personal freedoms. That being said, we have to make decisions in real time at the executive. Obama would not have been able to call all of Congress to go take out Osama bin Laden, but he had to make an executive decision right then. We've got to be able to find a way to work together, be able to have intelligence briefings that protect and secure America and bring the legislative back into their role in a responsible way.
So we're midway through our questions right now. So if you did write down any questions on your note cards, we're going to send some volunteers around. If you want to hold them up, does everyone have any questions written on there on the note cards? Grab those. If not, I think I still have some note cards from the earlier event we can check out too. They're in that bag right there. We'll get them in a moment. Yeah, we have time. But that being said, we can go on to question number 5 while that's happening. And that goes, we'll start with Mr. Ludden on that. Would you support a law that prohibits members of Congress and their immediate families from buying or selling individual stocks and betting in the prediction markets while in office?
Nancy Pelosi is a criminal. You can't do what she did without inside information. I had a friend of mine who got arrested for inside information when he unintentionally told somebody something. A stock trade was made, and he took some money, and his life was ruined. There should be blind trust. You shouldn't be able to trade on your knowledge. Nancy Pelosi should not be able to do better than Warren Buffett. Therefore, I believe there needs to be a control. There needs to be a mechanism that Congress is not trading stocks. There's funds out there that you can make oodles and oodles of money just following their trades. And that shouldn't be the case. Insider trading is a crime, and Nancy Pelosi should be prosecuted. Thank you.
I fully and completely support banning all individual stock trading in Congress. If you want to trade stocks, guess what? Put 10% of your monthly income into a big fund, a big grouping of stocks that you have no individual control of. But the way that a lot of these representatives, like Byron Donalds comes to mind as an example, where he's sitting on a committee where he's learning about all the different investments and businesses, and then he leaves the meeting and he throws $100,000 into a stock. 3 hours later, it triples in price, and he just made an entire year's salary overnight. That should be illegal. And not only that, I think we also need to put in term limits for Congress. Because if we just get rid of the stock trading, that won't fix all the corruption. So we need to put in the stock trade ban. We need to also have congressional term limits. We need to make it so that we're more focused on the American people and not on all of this money and corruption that's currently in our politics. Thank you.
1,000%, you should not be allowed to trade stocks. Your family should not be allowed to trade stocks. If you're going to volunteer and run for that position to represent, and you know you have insider information, you and your family should not be allowed to do it. If you don't like that rule, don't run. It's also going to solve the problem, 100% for term limits, and I believe that this could help with that. A lot of these people stay in Congress because they know they can make that much money. Whether the term limits exist or not, you're giving them more motivation to stay in. The retirement is 5 years, I believe it is. They can get full retirement in Congress. But we have people that have been in Congress longer than I've been alive, and they're becoming millionaires overnight and doubling and tripling their income, and so is their family. There's no way you can tell me that's by happenstance. It just does not exist. We need to put law into action immediately. And again, let's not pretend this is only one side of the aisle. Republicans do this too. Republicans in Congress have committed the same problems that Nancy Pelosi has. And I'm man enough to admit that. But I'm also here to fight to make sure that I'm not doing that, and I'm getting those ones out of office that are. The same thing I had on county council. When I had people that I did not agree with what they were doing, I didn't just sit back and let it happen. I ran campaigns to get them removed from county council, and we were successful 3 out of 4 times. That's how we get things across the finish line, by getting real Americans and real people actually working for the American people and not just trying to pad their own bank account.
So I think this offers an opportunity to talk about things comprehensively. When you look at this, the stock trading, why are people trading stock? Well, let's just look at it holistically. Yes, some people are actually abusing their authority. This gives us an opportunity to talk about term limits. Let's put in 12-year term limits. Because I will tell you personally, for me to go to Congress, the salary for Congress has been $174,000 a year for at least, a decade? For me to be able to afford to go to Congress, I've got 2 daughters, and they're at Clemson, and Clemson ain't cheap, and they're going to get married, and that ain't cheap either. So I don't want to be forced to have to do something like sell stocks. So I opened up 2 other small companies because I'm a mortgage banker by trade. It's federally regulated, which means I can no longer do a job that has put food on my table for 25 years. If we're going to go to Congress, let's put in term limits. Let's comprehensively talk about 12 years. Let's talk about no stock trading. And then let's talk about some sort of a salary that makes sense, that it keeps up with the cost of living, because you're keeping up 2 households, you're living in 2 places. You're not going to get rich, but you're giving up your prime income years as well. So I think you look at this holistically. That gives the school teacher a chance to serve. That gives everybody a chance to serve, and it's not going to break you, because I am the breadwinner for my family, and I'm proud to do that. Going to Congress is not going to make me rich. It's going to make me poor.
One word answer to your question, absolutely. And yes, I do support term limits. If I went up there, I would stay for no longer than 6 years. I got a husband, he's retired, I'm going to retire too, and we're going to see the world. So, no, and I don't think you should stay up there for long. People die in Congress. Now, I know people die at 50, 60, but when you're dying at 80 years old because you're in Congress, and South Carolina did that, if you'll recall, we had Strom Thurmond and we had Fritz Hollins for forever. And why? You just lose a lot of energy that comes with young people. You lose a lot of innovation that comes with young people. Pass the torch. You've mentioned 12 years. 12 is, that's still a little long. No, I like 6, 8 max for a term limit. And yeah, you don't get to trade stocks. You don't do a mutual fund. Those return about 14%, so you ought to be okay. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, never mind. We're on to the next question. We're trucking along. Mr. Dykes, this question starts with you. Federal budget and agency staffing cuts have impacted South Carolina in critical areas, including coastal and emergency management, healthcare and insurance access, research funding, wetlands protection, and Medicaid and SNAP benefits. How do you view these impacts on constituents, and should these reductions be reversed or maintained, in your opinion? That's Mr. Dykes, sorry.
I think a big part of the reason why we're having a lot of issues with our infrastructure is that we're too busy duking it out with different agencies of who's going to pay for what, as opposed for the federal government just covering a lot of this kind of stuff, like the infrastructure, like I-526. And we're so focused on sending all of our money overseas and spending all of our money, $500 million a day, for this blockade in Iran. For 3 hours of this war, we could completely fund all veterans' benefits for the entirety of the district. 5 days, we get all of I-526 covered. We have the money. This country makes trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars a year. It's not like we don't have the money to fund these programs. The issue is that we're spending all of it on the wrong things. And so my perspective is we should shift that focus from international, we should shift it back home to domestic, and then we can actually be able to get a lot of the help that the people of our area need.
Yeah, Washington doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. We need to make cuts across this country. It's not a secret. We have a state house right now in South Carolina that's bragging about getting $1 billion for our infrastructure in South Carolina. That's nothing to brag about. Sorry, but that's an embarrassment. I'm from Beaufort County. We're talking about passing a referendum for 8 years that's $780 million off a 1 penny sales tax. But we've already identified $2.1 billion worth of needs today. And you're going to tell me $1 billion is what we're going to rebuild South Carolina with? That's a joke. We sent over $250 million to Iran. We're continuing to spend money for people for health care that aren't even residents of this country. So it's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. So yes, I do believe in cutting, but I also believe in local communities taking care of themselves too. I told you I pushed the green space referendum because I wanted to make sure I protected our coastal waterways and protected our infrastructure to slow down the growth. But I still have to work with other people to get more funding down here to get the bigger picture done. That's how the federal government and local government can work together. I need to tell them at the county level what our needs are. This is what we need to focus on. But until Washington stops spending money on their pet projects and actually focuses on people, South Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in this country, and we're not in the top 50% for funding. That is an embarrassment and a joke, and Washington and our leadership has failed us.
Byers?
Could you repeat the question?
Sorry, yeah, it's just about federal cuts and whether you would uphold those. So we're talking about the cuts that have been made for research funding, coastal and emergency management, healthcare, insurance access, Medicaid, and SNAP benefits. So how do you view those impacts on constituents, and should these reductions be reversed or maintained?
Okay. So I agree we do have a spending problem. We have a prioritization problem. I think Scott Bessent may be one of the most talented secretaries of the Treasury this country's ever had, and he basically has told us recently we have over $500 billion annually of waste, fraud, and abuse in our entitlement systems. That is a real problem, and that's what we know about. We've got to get serious about cleaning that up. I will give you an example personally. I have a small home health care company. I have people that come to apply for a job with me. I want to offer them a job. I've had 2 people in the last year tell me this. Can you pay me cash under the table? Well, no, I can't do that. Well, if I get a W-2, which state law requires, I no longer qualify for Social Security disability. And this is someone who was not disabled at all. They were working already in other places. They were just getting cash under the table. We've got to get serious about cleaning up our entitlements and protecting Social Security for those who actually deserve it. We've got to get serious about cleaning up the Medicare fraud that's out there. These are things we've got to get serious about. Now, I will tell you, I'm a former school teacher. I would get rid of the Department of Education at the federal level. It does not help us at education at the local level. I was in Fort Dorchester High School when they passed No Child Left Behind. It made my day longer, added more red tape to my job, but it didn't make me a better teacher. I want to make sure we're pushing money to the classrooms, to the schools, to keep good teachers in the schools so that we can make sure that our kids are getting the best education. The federal government, we're spending money we don't have. We cannot continue to do that. At $39 trillion and counting, we've got to start cutting things that we should not be in the business of doing at the federal level.
Yes, a lot needs to be cut. Social Security disability is a great place to start, but you're not looking at a whole lot of money. We have become a country so that actually getting Social Security disability sometimes is a rite of passage. We just screwed the government. I see that a lot with my patients. A lot of my patients that don't want Social Security disability need it, and if you need it, you don't want it. People with schizophrenia need Social Security disability. People who don't want to go to work because they're having a little bit of anxiety or they're a little depressed, I'm not going to give you Social Security disability. As a matter of fact, I want you to go to work. I want you to socialize. I want you to not sit around your house and watch TV and be miserable all day long. So that's an individual thing that needs to be decided at a very, very local level. The Department of Education doesn't serve a purpose at the federal level. So, thank you.
And Mr. Ludden.
I think these gentlemen are stealing my notes. Logan's 100% right. There is not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. And that needs to be brought down to the community. We need to, if the founding fathers created a system with a limited federal government where the states control. That is not what we have. You need to find a community answer. When you talk infrastructure, I'm an RVer, I drive around the country. This is one of the only cities in the country that you can't drive around. 526 needs to be a complete circle so people can go on the highway and avoid the roads. The infrastructure, it's a toll, it's a tax. We have a huge commute in this area. Jay and them are right about education. Education needs to be totally reformed. It can't be a system based upon the 1880s in Prussia. If you had a proper education system, you'd have more time at home with your kids and be able to take care of your kids. So I think you need to break it down, and it needs to become a community answer to most of these problems. Thank you.
We're going to keep with the discussion of funding and cuts and talk about the U.S. debt. Mr. Cunningham, the U.S. government debt is now over $31 trillion. That's larger than our entire economy. What are your recommendations to address the debt?
Yeah, I'll tell you very simple. I'll go ahead and summarize all 10 candidates that are going to run for Congress. We're going to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse and how we have to get rid of that. But the one thing I'm not going to waste time talking about, because we all know we're going to talk about Medicare, Medicaid, cutting spending, stop sending money overseas. There's 2 things I want to hit on. One, I told you before I did not take any endorsements or any PAC money. Because you watch a budget go through that's 900 pages, because everything is padding in there that has nothing to do with that cover page or with that resolution. Once you stop and get one-page bills across a desk instead of 900-page bills filled with fluff, you can actually start making a dent in wasteful spending. That's the first part. The second thing to tackle this, on top of cutting spending and getting rid of fraud, you have to grow the GDP. If everyone remembers when Ford took their plants to Mexico, I don't blame them. This is the same company that shut down their factories to serve us in World War II and make bullets and planes. But you're telling me I can go to another country, pay cheaper prices, cheaper labor, make the same product, and ship it into your country for less money with no taxes? That's a win-win. That's where our government failed us. We need to deregulate our economy and deregulate on the businesses so they actually come back to America and pay our wages that we see fit for our citizens to grow the GDP. Then you can start making an actual impact on the national debt. Because you said it's bigger than the GDP right now. Until we grow that and cut the wasteful spending, they have to work together. And that's what I'm committed to do to make sure that we can deregulate and cut wasteful spending. Thank you.
So I agree that one of the things we've already talked about is just trying to really tackle the waste and fraud at the federal level. I mean, governments by nature, especially at that level, are very inefficient at delivering services, and it's very easy for fraud to happen. We've got to get serious about that in America. The other thing, too, is just smarter policy. I'll give you another example from a company. So Medicare does not offer to pay for people to have in-home care. If it's in-home non-medical care, that's a company I have. Medicare won't pay for that. You actually have to go to an assisted living facility or a nursing home facility, which is significantly more expensive. You have folks that are seniors that just want to be able to stay home. They need a little bit of help washing, cooking a meal, what have you. They don't want to go to a facility, but Medicare won't help them, and they are cash poor. Now, I'm not advocating for us to get more business, but I'm simply pointing out there is a cheaper way to do and deliver services where Medicare could actually start doing some things to save some money. We just need to get smarter with our policy across the board, start focusing on putting more money and deregulate. We need to be able to deregulate so that roads aren't so expensive to get permitted. When it takes 20 years to get through the Corps of Engineers and we spend $150 million for a road, that's because the federal government made it really difficult to build that road. And down here, we've got a lot of roads to build, and we've got to be able to work through that quickly. So we need to work on the regulation as well because we're choking ourselves with our own regulations at the federal level.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, yes. And we do need to do much smaller bills that come across Congress. You don't need to do a 900-page budget bill. You need to break it down. If you'll remember back when Clinton was president, they tried to get through a line item veto bill, and the Supreme Court shot that down. That may not have been a bad idea because you can cut out all the fluff without having to reintroduce the entire budget bill over and over again. That's kind of something I would get behind. And if we can't get it through the Supreme Court, if they say that that's not constitutional, then yeah, do single expense budgets. Do just the defense, do just Social Security, don't put the whole thing together. And things just need to be cut. I was raised by a banker. It's smart spending. We're just simply not getting what we pay for. We pay for so much. If you remember the $900 toilet seat, they actually had that in the Department of Defense budget, and that wasn't Clinton. I want to think that was Reagan, but that was actually quite funny. They found that in the defense budget. It's been going on for a long time, which is why we're in the pickle that we're in. Thank you.
I hate to be the accountant in the room and the bearer of bad news, but the number is $38 trillion, not 31. That's 20% higher than we just quoted. It's increasing by $1 trillion every 100 days. Candidate earlier today said 1 million seconds is about 11 days, and 1 trillion seconds is over 30 years. You just can't keep doing what you're doing and printing and wasting and spending money. Single bill, 100%. Things need to be quick, easy, be able to be decided. There can't be fluff in everything and everything. They had a balanced budget bill, and Clinton balanced the budget. What do? Let's get rid of the bill. If you look at the last couple of tax law changes, the Bush and the Trump tax law changes, they were all only went out 8 or 10 years because you had to balance the budget in 10 years. So that means the tax law would have reverted if things weren't passed. So I think spending needs to be cut. I can find the fraud. I'm a forensic accountant, and I can help solve these problems with my unique skill set. Thank you.
Let's talk about increasing some of the income that we're able to actually make here as a country, because you have to pay off the national debt with some kind of money. Well, let's talk about the fact that half of China's economy, it feels like, is being propped up by the American consumer. We're sending all these factories overseas. All the manufacturing is going over to China, and no one's doing anything about it because the corporations care more about their profits than the American people. When they're international, they don't have to pay the same taxes. They don't have to pay their fair share to be able to support the American people. And almost all of that comes down to a Michigan Supreme Court case between the Dodge Motor Vehicles and Henry Ford's Motor Company, where he wanted to give the money back to the taxpayer, back to the people. He wanted to have cheaper cars, higher wages. Dodge was going out of business, so they sued him. And then because of that case, all corporate law today says that businesses have to pay everything to the shareholder, not to the American people. And that court case alone is why all of our jobs have been shipped overseas, why trillions of dollars have gone to China. And so we can bring in trillions of dollars back to the economy and use that to pay down the national debt just by revoking that case and rewriting corporate law so the focus is on the people and not on profits.
Tyler, you're correct, but it's actually the employees that they didn't want to pay. It wasn't the people. He wanted to raise the employees' wages, and that's not what was allowed.
A little fact check stand there. This next question is for Mr. Byers. According to the South Carolina Independent Voter Project, about 1/3 of South Carolina voters identify as independent. Other surveys show the same trend, and the majority of Americans give both parties negative ratings. How are you attracting independents and those who identify with the other major party to your candidacy?
Love that question. I build parks, libraries, schools, and roads. When I first got elected on county council, I had people saying, we don't need to talk about building parks. We don't need to talk about expanding government. No, we need to talk about making our community better. Because in Summerville, it is a great place to live. But it takes 24 hours to get to James Island County Park from Summerville these days. And at the end of the day, we want nice things 5 or 10 minutes from our house. So we've worked in the middle. I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, but I love working with everybody across the spectrum because you don't get those things built without building coalitions. Coalitions within your council, within your community and your constituents, and you have to be able to listen to people with what they want. My constituents in 2010, when I earned that and beat the chairman of county council, knocking on 2,000 doors, I learned very quickly, look, we want low taxes, but we need some resources here. We need to invest in ourselves, and we have done that. You come to Dorchester County now, you'll have 3 state-of-the-art parks that don't take a back seat to anyone, that did not exist 5 years ago. 2 brand new libraries. I used to teach chemistry at Fort Dorchester High School. I had to get my kids to do study sessions at Robert's Barbecue on Ashley Phosphate Road because we didn't have a library at 7 o'clock for them to meet in. That has all changed. So you work in the middle because you work for your community, and you don't worry about losing an election. You just stand up for what you think's right and listen to your constituents.
I can get along with anybody. I've proven that over the last 38 years because I have gotten along with anybody. I can get along with prisoners. I can get along with you. I can get along with pretty much anybody because I'm a very respectful person. I'm going to listen to you. And so that's how I attract voters outside of the Republican Party. I'm here to represent you. I don't care what your party is. I care where you live. And if you live in my district, then you're my responsibility. And if it is my fault, then it is obviously my responsibility to fix it. So my fault, my fix. I'm responsible for you. I don't care about the ins and outs. So that's how I attract people outside of the Republican Party, because I really don't care about your party affiliation. I care about whether or not you're my constituent. Thank you.
I introduce myself as a Ron Paul Republican. I forget to mention with libertarian DNA. I ran for Congress in New Jersey, the 10th district of New Jersey, which is Newark, Bayonne, and Montclair. Montclair is a prominent white area, and in that voting district, there were 6% white people. I could have ran in Cape May, where the white people are, and stuff like that, and been more successful in my election. When I ran for the state Senate district in Charleston, I ran as a Libertarian. There are 124 House of Representative seats in the state of Charleston. 55 of them run unopposed. Ed Sutton would have won his election in June if my name wasn't on the ballot. In another 25 of those elections, once you win inside your party, you win. So I can reach out to the Libertarians, I can understand Libertarians, I can understand anybody and everybody. I grew up in a honestly the worst high school in New York State as far as Regent Scholarship winners, okay? I've done family law mediation, and I can bring people together. Family law, lawyers are the worst profession in the world. They play on your emotions and your money, and I've worked through that situation. I can work with anybody, and I am an independent Ron Paul Republican. Thank you.
My message is this. It does not matter if you are liberal or conservative, left-wing or right-wing. Every single person in this country knows we're not going in the right direction. Things might be slightly better than they were under Biden, but I don't want slightly better. I want a lot better. I go down to the gas pump and I see it's inching up towards $5 a gallon, $100 to fill up the tank. When you have an affordability crisis where it's $2,000 a month for rent in the Charleston area for the average apartment. That's not even including the home prices, $440,000 in order to afford a home now. That's what all of them are. Well, your average income here is nowhere near high enough to be able to afford that. So you want to know what unites people of all sides? How about our pocketbooks? How about the fact that none of us have any money anymore to actually be able to spend on the things that we love, that we care about? So my message to everyone is that if you want someone that will tackle the affordability crisis, that will tackle the corruption that is currently happening in our government, I am the man for that of both parties, of the Republicans and the Democrats. I am the one that is going to fight the most to fix these issues. Thank you.
I told you guys in my opening statement that I'm the candidate that didn't have empty promises and brought results. I'm going to back it up again. When I first ran, I did not ask the Republican Party for permission. I did not ask our local organizations. And still to this day, they have their back turned on me. I beat their candidate in the primary the first time. I went for 4 years, went back, and I beat their candidate again. Both those elections were the presidential cycle. I got more votes in that area than Donald Trump did, which means people reached across the aisle to vote for me. I beat him by 7% the second time around. I'm a Republican. I've supported Donald Trump's policies, but people in my area saw my results for those first 4 years that even though they did not have an R next to their ideology, they still swayed with me and voted for me during the general election because they knew that I brought real results. So the question was, how do I get independent voters? I work for it. I continue to bring real results because things that matter, driving down the road is not a Republican, Democrat, or independent issue. That's a life issue. Those are things that impact us day to day that doesn't have a label on it. And those are the results that I bring. So my mission's been very simple. I don't get outworked, and I continue to keep my nose to the ground and just continue to get the job done. That's how I get the voters on not only the independent and Republican, but on the Democrat side as well. Thank you.
Ms. Riley, we're going to go to you for the next question. We're going to talk about what your stance on abortion is and what limits or exceptions do you support. If you know, in South Carolina, we're currently a 6-week ban with certain exceptions up to 12 weeks. Where do you stand on this? Do you think it needs to be more restrictive, less restrictive? How do you see abortion in America, South Carolina?
Abortion. Abortion is such
You want to grab the mic too, sorry.
I'm sorry. Abortion is such a personal issue. 1 in 4 women in this country have had an abortion. It is a terrible, horrible decision to have to make. Are you going to have that baby, or are you going to have your life? Because you're not going to get much help from the father. I am actually opposed to doing an abortion ban. I think first trimester abortion should be allowed. Now, I would be willing to sign a total and absolute ban on abortion as soon as they tacked on a mandatory vasectomy law. And I don't foresee that happening because women do not get pregnant by themselves, and the man's not taking responsibility. So either you're going to pay that child support, you're going to step up, or we're going to give you a vasectomy. Planned Parenthood can do it, urologists can do it in about 15 minutes, and these guys up here are holding, they're closing it down. Because I think the men need to be responsible. No, knock on wood, I never, ever had to make that decision. I've had friends that have had to make that decision. I've had patients that have had to make that decision, and they struggle with that decision. And they really did feel trapped. So, no, I don't think the government in any way, shape, or form should step in the first trimester. Thank you.
Earlier today it was made as a woman's right, and you're right, the men need to be involved, and if it's mine or my daughter's, or I suddenly go to medical school, that's when I think I have a say in the matter. I am pro-choice, but there needs to be limits. We can make the adoption system. I have a number of clients that adopted a child from foreign countries. We can make the adoption system substantially better. We can find a community answer in order to solve this problem and allow for the rights of both the mother and the child. But I am pro-choice, and as I said, I believe if we firm up the adoption system and make it better for American people and American families, the community can come up with the solution to this problem. Thank you.
I'm going to say something that'll probably offend some of you here in this room, but I'm against abortion. I think that, unfortunately, morally, the life begins at conception. But also one of the things is that I'm running for the federal government, not the state government. The decision has already been made to pass that decision back to the states. And so it really doesn't matter what my perspective is on this issue. That is up to the state house, to the state senate to make that decision. Me personally, I do not support it. And one of the reasons I don't support it is because there are so many people that want to adopt children but can't. Where it costs $70,000 in order to even begin the adoption process, where people go overseas because it's so expensive to be able to adopt. There are way more parents right now waiting to adopt than there are babies that can be adopted. And so I absolutely agree that we need to support our women who become pregnant. We need to support the mothers that are in these situations. And instead of terminating the life of the baby, I think they should be put up for adoption in America with a loving home. And that is my perspective there. Thank you.
Yeah, I already know what I'm about to say based on the quote in this paper is going to upset a lot of people in this room, but I'm a firm believer you are who you are. I'm against abortion. I'm 100% pro-life, but I look at it two different ways. One, you have to get rid of about 97% of abortions to just get down to the real argument. Everyone uses 3% of abortions as the argument: rape, incest, so on, or the health of the mother. So I'll tell you this, I'm a product of one of those 3%. My mom did not make that decision. My mom got pregnant with me at 15, had me at 16. I would not be here today if she made that decision. So that's a tough thing for people to have that conversation, but people want to say, I don't have the right to talk about it, or they might say that over here that men don't have the right. Well, by the court of law in the state of South Carolina, we are done to child support for 18 years, as we should be. I believe in equality, 100% across the board, equal. If we make the decision to have consensual sex and then we get pregnant, we are on the hook for 50-50. If I choose not to be a part of that child's life, I get taken for 18 years. But where is my say in that when I say, I would like to keep this child as the father, this was consensual? So those conversations need to be had. It is a state issue, but one thing I can do on the federal level that I believe we should do is, we do have a problem in our adoption agency. I believe, and this is where I believe I'll make a lot of people mad, I would defund Planned Parenthood, and I would use those funds to reallocate them to our adoption agencies and reform that aspect. Because there are kids and there are children out there that can make an impact. I would not be here today if my mom did not make that decision, and I can tell you it was not her decision for me to be here originally. Thank you.
So when I was about 12 years old, I was sitting in the living room at the house, and we had family photos all over the wall, and one of the plaques on the wall was my parents' wedding invitation. And I got looking at it, and it said June 12th, 1971. Dad walked by, and I was like, hey, Dad, don't babies have to stay in the womb for like 9 months before they're born? He's like, yeah. I said, well, I'm born January 14th, 1972. That's only 7. And he laughs at me. He's like, well, heck, son, you're the reason your mom and I got married. And there's a lot of truth to that. They were 20-year-old kids. I was a mistake. I was unplanned. I have to stand before God one day and answer for everything that I've done on this planet. I am a provider and a protector by nature. I've got daughters. We have to be able to have empathetic and loving conversations, but I feel like I have to be able to stand before God one day and say, I spoke up for those who couldn't speak for themselves. That being said, we need to make sure that we're having those conversations at home. We're taking care of our ladies who are in trouble. We are not ostracizing, but we are loving and embracing them and talking about options and hopefully leading them to a choice that brings a child into this world, because it is a difficult choice. It is not an easy choice. I do not take that for granted. But from my seat, I'm glad that I'm here because I'm glad that my daughter's here. I want to make sure that I stand up for other people that have a chance to come to this earth and make a difference.
May I add something to that?
I mean, you already had your time, so we'll put it for your closing statement, maybe? That being said, we are on the last question before we get to some of our audience questions, and we'll start with you, Mr. Ludden. If elected, how would you vote on the SAVE Act, and what specific changes, if any, would you seek to address when it comes to barriers to voter registration and concerns about election security?
Well, to me, election security, I left my phone in the back, but to me, election security can be my touching my phone. Only 35% of the people in this country don't vote. And I'll tell you, my voting record, when I ran, I couldn't vote for myself because I wasn't in that district. So in 2024 was actually the first time I voted for president. I was actually on the ticket as vice president because the Libertarian Party does things differently, and I got 3 votes for the vice president of the United States of America. But if you look at all the other candidates, they were all going to endorse me for president. I think it's important that everybody votes, because now you can eliminate 35% of the people that you know are not voting. And I think it's important that you have to be legally in this country to vote. And as I said, for voter security, I have a fingerprint and I could touch my phone. And we have the technology today with blockchain and everything that vote gets locked in and is private, and only U.S. citizens should be voting. Thank you.
I stand completely with the SAVE Act as it is being pushed by a number of people, including Thomas Massey, because we need to have free, safe, and fair elections that people actually believe in. If half of either side are believing that our elections are fraudulent, they're never going to trust the system. They're never going to actually participate. They're going to be constantly demoralized and depressed, thinking they don't actually have a say, that they can't actually make a difference. And so it's my perspective, we have to support the SAVE Act. We have to have safe and secure elections, that we can agree that our votes are going to the candidates that we believe they're going for, and that there isn't any kind of election rigging happening behind the scenes. And I think that once people are certain that our elections are safe, that our elections are secure, it'll actually go a long way towards mending a lot of the bridges that have been burned down in our country. And so that's the main reason, of course, why I support the SAVE Act and why I support preserving election integrity.
Yeah, I'm 100% in support of the SAVE Act. I've been saying this for years. We need to have paper ballots to go along with electronics to do checks and balances. The bigger issue is going to be this. We need to have a baseline that all 50 states have to go by. You have to. We can't have one state not require an ID and another require it. One state allows you, if you have a driver's license, you can vote, but you can get a driver's license and not be a citizen. There has to be the baseline. Everyone loves to say the federal government needs to stay out of the elections. I agree, the power should be in the states, but there has to be a baseline if these people in all these states are going to make decisions for the entire country. So I do support, you need to have a federal ID, you need to be a U.S. citizen to be able to vote in our elections, and you also have to live in the area that you vote in. I also believe in closed primaries. This needs to be done. We should not be dictating other people's elections to begin with. It's happened on the Republican level as well. They have done it. So have Democrats. So we need to address these issues. We need to secure our elections to make sure that there is no doubt. Because right now, I can tell you, our laws here in South Carolina are a lot different than the ones in California. If you go look where they have placed illegal immigrants across this country, it's been strategically done to areas that allow open votes. You can get a driver's license in 4 states and not be a U.S. citizen. And then all you need is that ID to go and vote. And 2 of those 4, you don't even need the ID. Just need an address. So I do support the SAVE Act. I think we need to get that done. And it's also a shame that Congress has not gotten that done when we have a Republican majority. Thank you.
When President Trump went with President Xi in China this week, one of the things that Xi put into immediately addressed with Trump was that America was in the Thucydides trap, which basically the argument is we're in decline, China is on the rise. That is something we don't believe in our elections. Across the board, we don't trust the integrity of elections. That is a real problem. That was not a problem necessarily 20 years ago. However, it's always been an issue. Cheating's gone on in elections since the dawn of time, but at this point it's tearing us apart. We've got to be able to believe in our elections. We should get rid of mail-in balloting for everybody except for overseas and veterans. That is too easy to abuse. Photo ID is a no-brainer. American citizenship, no-brainer. These are things that protect the integrity of the American Republic, and it protects the American dream for our future kids. We have a great country. We are the best thing going. But we are tearing ourselves apart with lack of trust. If we will integrate trust into the election process across the board with a standard that everybody sticks with, I believe we will go a long way to healing our elections and therefore healing our trust in the process. All of us are tired of hearing so-and-so stole the election, so-and-so stole the election. It's not healthy for us. Let's put that argument to bed once and for all. Let's be very clear about who's voting, who can vote, legally vote to protect the United States of America and our great republic.
I wasn't born Cindy Riley. I was born Cindy Wagers. Every ID I have now for the last 37 years has said Cindy Riley. In order for me to get my real ID, I had to go to my bank box, dig out a birth certificate, dig out a marriage certificate, which, by the way, I got married 3 times to the same man. So I've got it in 3 different languages. It's not as simple as the SAVE Act. I'm fine with you securing the elections, and I do think elections should be secured. I don't think going on an ID is as simple as people think it is. Women change their names, and if you're a widow and you change your name again, or if you're divorced, oh my goodness, or if mama got real smart and gave you a hyphenated name when you were born, oh my goodness. And I know little girls like that. They're my daughter's age, 23 years old, and so this child has 4 names, and when she gets married, which 2 is she going to give up, and how is that going to work again? And that's what you have to do in order to get a real ID. I took a folder in. Men don't have that. They don't ever change their names. And so, yes, I do believe in securing elections. I just don't think an ID is the way to do it. If you want to do a PIN code, if you want to do a paper ballot and compare it with the electronic, that's fine. But an ID is simply not the way to do it. Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to go into extra innings here, and I think we have enough time because it's just at 3 o'clock, and we'll get to those closing statements in about 15 minutes. So the first extra question we're going to go to is Mr. Dykes. How do you see the bin Laden assassination and what's happening in Iran differently, or maybe also similarly, with regards to the War Powers Act?
With regards to the war what?
To the War Powers resolution that we were talking about.
That is an excellent question. I'm going to have to think about that here for a second.
It's a lot.
That was considered by virtually everyone across the board as an extra military action, where they went in, they took down Saddam Hussein, and that was a big military action. But they took down Osama bin Laden, they got him, they killed him. That was a very small, limited action, and I think that would probably not have been limited by the War Powers Resolution. But in relation to current conflicts, I do have to say I also fully oppose that action that was taken against Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela as well. I am tired about reading about how we're constantly getting involved in other countries' foreign affairs when we have the strongest military and the strongest navy in the world. Let's use it at home. And so maybe the War Powers Resolution wouldn't have stopped that, but I think it goes much deeper than that. We have to just oppose a lot of these actions in general. So that is my full statement on that, I would say.
Could you repeat the question one more time for me, just to make sure I understand completely?
Yeah, it's just in necessarily in terms of, I guess, American intervention in certain things, including assassinating Osama bin Laden and our intervention into Iran. How do you see them differently, especially with regards to the War Powers Resolution?
Perfect. Yeah, I do believe our president has the authority to take immediate action if they see the opportunity. You were talking about people that have been screaming death to America for over 40 years, have continued to threaten American citizens time and time again. And now you can see it more than ever with social media. You want to go on a rabbit trail, go onto X and just type it in. You can watch the videos. They're right there. There's no editing a live video from a street. Now, one thing me and Tyler do disagree on is I do agree with the action in Venezuela, because I do believe that is the port where the drugs are being shipped into the water from Colombia to the United States that was killing hundreds of thousands of people every single year. That is a direct threat to Americans in this country. Fentanyl is a real problem in this country. So yes, if our president or whoever that is in the future or Congress sees a need to be able to take a direct threat out that also was labeled as a terrorist and one of the most wanted people in the world by the prior administration, Biden, not by Trump. Trump's the one that just took the action. So both parties should be online with that because both agreed to make sure that it got done. So there are times our government should handle things in a direct and swift action. Because I'll tell you this, I truthfully believe that United States citizens will never know everything. We won't, but realistically we shouldn't. There are things that they have to take care of and handle, and that is what our government is there to do, is to protect us on a day-to-day basis. So if swift action needs to be taken, we might not always agree, but we probably do not know all the information either, so we have to remember that.
You know, I touched on this earlier, and I agree with what the president's doing in Iran. I think it's the right action for our future. We've been dealing with a threat for 47 years. Venezuela has also been a threat, the narco threat. I've had employees' husbands who have died from fentanyl overdose and watched their kids have to grow up without a father. We need to be able to protect the integrity of the national security of the United States. Our military is here to do that. No, we don't need to get into endless wars. We spent 20 years in GWAT spending trillions of dollars trying to rebuild other countries. We need to avoid that. But the executive does need to be able to act in real time. I would love for Congress to be more involved if we could trust them to actually keep things classified, keep things close to the vest, so that we don't enable our enemies. But I think from this standpoint, with what happened with Osama bin Laden, fully supported that, celebrated that based on what he did to our country, killing 3,000 people in New York and Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon and in Pennsylvania. We need to make sure that we are, as congressional members, working with the president from either administration to protect America. And the president needs to have some authority to be able to act in real time. He's not going to be able to go to the Hill and try to get people to act on something that you've got a very small window of 4 hours to be able to do something that's going to protect the United States. From that standpoint, I do support the executive making real-time action.
I do support that the president should be able to do something quickly. When you have an opportunity, you need to do it. Yeah, Congress is giving up some of its authority in allowing him to do that, but if it is for the betterment of the country, sure. I thought Obama did a really good job. I think Trump did a really good job with Venezuela, with Iran. I don't think Congress needs to give up all the power to allow him to run an endless war, which I'm afraid that's what we're getting into now. Thank you.
Anybody who thinks of Osama bin Laden was responsible for 9/11 just doesn't understand things. I actually worked in the World Financial Center on 9/11. And if anybody can explain to me how and why Building 7 fell, other than it being alphabet soup, IRS, SEC, CIA, FBI, and those records needed to be destroyed. How Larry Silverstein had insurance on those buildings. But, again, I'm against the warfare state, but the president has to be able to make decisions quickly. 535 people can't unite on anything, and we're going to keep it secret what we're going to do. So for a limited time, I do believe the president should have the authority to make moves that need to be made. But he said, Congress hasn't declared war since World War II, and how many wars have we been in? So let's limit the warfare state, and that'll help with the welfare state. It'll help eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. Thank you.
And we just got 2 more quick questions before closing statements. And this next one, we'll start with Mr. Cunningham. How do you see foreign aid impacting national security? And to paraphrase former Governor David Beasley, who is also over the World Food Program, if we aren't feeding hungry people around the world, ISIS is. And maybe also talk to those cuts that were made to USAID. So what are your thoughts on essentially soft power being used for national security purposes?
Yeah, I think you have 2 different things. If you're going to talk about dropping food aid in Africa, but it's just getting taken up by a militia that's using it as a gatekeeper, that's a problem. We're just dropping off supplies to actual people that are withholding supplies to a country, and that is real time happening. As of this morning, we actually took out the number 2 leader of ISIS in Africa. That happened a couple hours before we got here today, who was directly impacting resources going to those communities that we were shipping there. So I think first thing is, if you're gonna have that conversation, you need to make sure that it's actually not being wasted and not supplying the people we're directly trying to fight against. That's the first part. Secondly, if we're gonna be the leader of this world, we are gonna have to support other areas. You can't completely cut everything off. We understand that we have to be able to protect allies. You have to be able to protect sovereignty in this world. Everyone talks about whether it's the Iran war, 80,000 people were killed in 3 months, and nobody cared, except us to jump in. In Africa last year, 250,000 Christians were persecuted, and nobody wants to bat an eyelash. They want to act like it doesn't exist. That's a problem. So if we're going to aid people, yes, I'm fine with aiding people. If we need to go in and build wells or food supplies, I get it. But I also seen outreaches do that as well. But if our government is going to be the only sole supply of it, like they are with NATO, that's where I have a problem. Other countries should be stepping up as well. We have been the gatekeeper to make sure that other countries are taken care of, but when we need help or we need support, other countries don't help us out. That's where my real problem lies. Thank you.
You know, America really, we've got the biggest charity heart in the entire world. Name one other country that does more for other countries than the United States of America. And that's both from our government standpoint, but also charities. I look at this at a couple of different ways. I think Logan touched on it. There's been multiple studies that show that when we send aid internationally, whether it's food or money or what have you, very little of that gets to the people who really need it. It gets siphoned off by third parties, militias, corrupt governments, you name it. It's not getting there. I come from a place that I think, well, let's not spend government money. The Samaritan's Purse and other mission organizations can go out and actually do this work. We support our churches. Our churches can send people into the field, and there's accountability. And then you see 90% of that resource gets to the people who need it. Versus the federal government, there's very little oversight. There's rampant waste and abuse. We want to be able to help other people. We need to stay engaged in the world. For our national security, we can't just retreat. We actually have to stay engaged. We're doing a much better job of looking out for our hemisphere here in the Western Hemisphere. If we help countries, Venezuela or Colombia or you name it, where they actually can create jobs and wealth at home, people will stay home. They won't necessarily come all the way through Central America on a weeks-long dangerous journey to try to get into the United States. We do need to be able to be integrated into the world and engaged in the world. That's to our benefit, but it's also the right thing to do. But I think we need to start looking at it differently. Let's do it less with the government, more with the churches.
I agree with Jay. I think the churches can be very, very beneficial in this. And I do wish the government would start funding some missionary programs. I saw that in Indonesia. A lot of missions came over there. The thing is those guys were in danger a lot. They were tagged, Indonesia's a Muslim country. They were tagged as Christians. Their houses were burned. So there is a huge risk. I'm not sure how we send them into places with militias and say, you know, go over there with your Bibles and make it all okay. So that's a slippery slope. If we don't figure out a way to help these countries, China will. And China's communist, people, And so you can either have a free country as the leader of the world, or you can have a communist country as the leader of the world. But that's a decision. I know nobody wants to send money internationally, but we're kind of got our backs against the wall with that. Thank you.
Let's look at one of the countries that's the largest holder of U.S. debt, because that 38 trillion is mostly from warfare. We should tell Japan, hey, Japan, we've been protecting you since World War II. And that debt that you think you have of ours, we need to cut that in half. And instead of us paying you interest, you should pay us money. China's in your backyard, not ours. So by doing things like that, you can eliminate the aid and reduce the aid and cut the waste, fraud, spending, and abuse, and cut the national debt and the spending at the same time. Thank you.
Am I the only person in this race that wants America to mind her own business? I don't want to send our bullets to the Middle East, and I don't want to send money to the Middle East. I don't want to send them food, and I don't want to drop bombs. You just said it, $38 trillion in debt, and we're talking about sending billions of dollars to somewhere in the middle of Africa that 90% of Americans can't even find on a map. How about the veterans, the 22 veteran suicides a day? How about the fact we have people right here in the Low Country that are suffering, that are starving? How about the 36% of Americans that are on some form of welfare and are still struggling to get by? So I don't care what Iran does to its citizens. I don't care about Africa or Asia or Europe. I care about America, and I care about the Low Country. So yeah, we should cut the aid and not send them bombs, not send them food, and let's use that money to improve America and the lives of American citizens.
And then the last question I think will be pretty easy. We've already kind of touched on this too, but we'll start, let's see here, with Mr. Byers. What about term limits when we talk about Senate and Congress? How about we just focus on Congress since you guys don't care about the Senate right now? How many terms would you suggest would you abide by if you do believe in term limits?
I would certainly support passing legislation that at the federal level you have 12-year term limits. And I'll tell you why I think that. I've been on Dorchester County Council for 16 years. And I don't know if any of y'all ever noticed, but government does not move fast. It took us a long time to get those parks built. It took us a long time to get those libraries built, and I'm glad I was able to actually work to help finish getting that done. But you also need some seniority. I know Cindy mentioned 6 years. You spend the first 2 years of elected office just figuring out where the bathrooms are. You need to be able to build some seniority, some people that have some seasoned experience to be able to lean on, that chair committees, that actually know what they're talking about. They've got some depth of knowledge of the institution, but also the policies that younger elected officials can lean on. But I would love to see us do that across the board. For Congress, I would do 6 terms at 12 years. For Senate, I would do 12 years. That's 2 terms. The president's at 8 years. Then it's not a career. Then you don't have people up there in their 80s and 90s who are still passing public policy, who realistically, should be spending time at home with family at that point. I can tell you this, if I'm up there in my 80s, I want everybody in this room to take me out back and beat me with a rubber hose. I do not plan on being there that long. Thank you.
For Congress, I'm going to stand on my 6 years. I think that's enough. You want to extend the Senate? Yes, they have a longer term. But yeah, I think 3 elections, 3 cycles, if you can't get it done by then, you probably aren't going to get it done. And so send somebody else up there, maybe has a different idea, that can push something through, that can work it a little bit differently. My goodness, the younger folks that have the technology knowledge that can run things through and do it better. Yeah, you've got the experience, but you've also got the cobwebs. Thank you.
Simple solution to term limits. Balanced budget. We can't balance the budget as Congress. We don't get paid. Real simple. That'll cure term limits. Second thing, Warren Buffett. If you can't keep spending within a certain percentage of GDP, you're out of job. That means every 2 years we'll have turnover until things get corrected and get done right. I wouldn't want to take a Ron Paul out of office or a Rand Paul out of office. If you're successfully doing your job, and as long as the election cycle isn't a 3% turnover, as long as people are getting in, this is not meant to be a career for people. As a matter of fact, with salary, I plan on donating my salary to charity. I don't think this should really be a paid position, and as I said, we should be the last people to get paid, and that'll cure term limits. Thank you.
I think that term limits absolutely need to be a thing, but also more importantly, we need to extend the length of term as it currently is in Congress. I mean, you only really get 6 months of legislating done every 2 years maximum, because then you have to go out and you have to fundraise, you have to go and try to get on the committees, and then by the time you get finished with that, you're running for re-election. And so you have maybe 3 to 6 months out of every 2-year cycle that anything gets done. And so they spend all this time trying to run for re-election, trying to get all of the PAC money, trying to get all of the influence, just so they can run again. And so, yeah, we need term limits, probably 2 or 3 term limits maximum, but I think we also need to extend the terms to most likely like 4 years, give or take. And I do think that the position should be paid, because if it's not, then people like myself would never be able to run for office, because I would need that money in order to live and have food. That would completely kick the working class out from being able to serve in our government. And so first and foremost, we need to extend the term length and then have term limits of 2 to 3 terms. Thank you.
I 100% support term limits. I've tried to get it passed on the county council level twice and got rejected twice. And I'm going to keep trying until I get all those people out of office so we can get it passed in county council. I had 2 people that were over 20 years in Beaufort County Council before I got on there. Both of them ran elections against them to get them out because that's way too long. That's the first part. Secondly, he's correct. We need to change the amount of time that Congress is in office. It should be moved to 4 years, and it should be put on the presidential cycle. 2 reasons. One, Jay's right. You're going to spend the first year just learning where things are. Any form of government, that's going to happen. Learning how it works, learning the people, learning the operations, just day-to-day, how meetings work. It's things people don't think about on a daily basis, but it's real. So I think Congress needs to move to 4 years. I think it should be on a presidential cycle, and that way you actually get turnout. Because right now you can have an off election, and all these people can just continue to keep on coasting all the way through and be on there for 20 and 30 years, or they get on in a special election, or they get on in an off year when you're getting 8% voter turnout, and 8% of the area is going to dictate the rest of the country. That is the biggest problem. So I support 12 years for Congress, but changing the terms to 4 years so you can actually get things done. The other people haven't hit on that they should be hitting on is this race, when it's all said and done between Republicans and Democrats, will cost somewhere between $15 to $18 million. You're doing that every 2 years. That is a shame, and that is wasteful of taxpayer dollars. And you're correct. You will start re-campaigning at this 2-year mark a year into your office. You just learn what's going on, and you're back out on the campaign trail. Thank you very much.
All right, now we will allow candidates to make a 60-second closing statement. We will proceed in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we'll start with Ms. Riley. Please give us your closing statement for 60 seconds.
Hi, I'm Cindy Wagers Riley. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. It has truly been an honor. Y'all, this is the League of Women Voters, and I get that. I get where you came from. My grandmother was very, very big into this. Although I have had no political career, my life has exposed me to situations not experienced by most. I am a low country native. I am a from ya, not a come ya. I live by 5 simple rules. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, be nice, and make your mama proud, and I will die on that hill. I was raised in Dorchester County. Smart spending was taught to me by a mother who was a banker when women didn't work. My dad was a game warden. I know the environment. I love wandering in the woods. Public education gave me my American dream, and I have the American dream. I went to school, I went to college, everything was public education. I do believe in small government, smart spending, better education, much better health care, and term limits. And thank you so much, Cindy W. Riley for Congress.com. Y'all have a great day.
So as I mentioned before, I love the job I have now, and I love serving our community. I love what we've been able to do. But it's really just become apparent to me that we need help at the federal level. We need a partner who's concerned about taking care of home. For me, this race is about making sure that we are taking care of home, that we are working with our local government partners to make our lives better. We've built parks in Dorchester County, we built libraries in Dorchester County, but I can't tell you enough, we don't have the tax base to be able to solve our problems. We need to be able to work with the feds and the state to do that better. So my reason for running is to make sure we're delivering the same results that we've done at Dorchester County and throughout the Charleston region to bring those results home for us. For me, this is about taking care of family and taking care of the low country. If everybody would start focusing on taking care of home, our country would heal itself very quickly. So if prioritizing infrastructure in the low country is important to you, if protecting the beauty of the country is important to you, if protecting the American dream for our young people and for our seniors and our middle class is important, I would ask for your support. Go to votejbyers.com for more information. Thank you so much for having us tonight. Thank you.
I told you guys before, I never thought about getting into politics. That was never the dream. I did it because I saw a need in the community that I grew up in. I grew up in Bluffton, South Carolina, been there my whole life. The rest of my family left, I stayed. But I saw an idea that it could be taken away from us, which is why I ran for county council. And on there, I didn't have empty promises, I brought real results, which I'm the only person that can say that. I've accomplished every single campaign goal that I set out for 6 years ago, every single one. It wasn't easy, but we got it across the finish line. That's the same determination I'm planning to take to Congress. I've told you guys before, I don't answer to anybody but people in rooms like this. I've not taken any money from PACs and no endorsements for a reason. The job's not done, though. Somebody has to continue to fight for the low country and put the low country first and not go up there to shake hands in Washington. I've proven that. Whether it's on the local level to stay away from the establishment there or the establishment in other communities. The point is we've gotten it across the finish line. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about putting the low country first and protecting our way of life. And this is my home. This is where I grew up, and this is the thing that I will fight for. If you're interested in the campaign, please, logancunningham.com. You'll see all my stances on local and national issues. Thank you, and thank you guys for having us here. God bless.
My name is Tyler Dykes, and I am the United States Marine Corps vet who is running to replace the retiring Nancy Mace, and I am the only person in this race, Democrat or Republican, who actually wants to put the American people first, not foreign interests, not big business, not all these different kind of interest groups that want to take control of our country, the American people and the American people only. That is why I'm fighting for the people of our county, of our district, of our state, and our nation. That is what I am here to fight for. That is what I believe in more than anything else. So yes, I am young, but I am a veteran and a fighter who is fighting for the future of our country and for the future of the Low Country. Thank you for having me here.
Hi, I'm Kendall Ludden. I'd like to thank the League of Independent Voters for having this, the church for serving us, the MC, and my fellow candidates. As I've pointed out, I have the unique skill set to help do two things. The government is two things, respect and responsibility. And the nuclear family is the greatest form of government that ever existed. I can help find a community solution to every problem in the government and bring it down so that it's not a bipartisan argument on everything you do. I seek to reunite the community, and I thank you for your vote. You can look me up at Ludden, L-U-D-D-E-N, for liberty.org. My name's Kendall Ludden, and I pray for your vote in the election whenever they decide to have it. Thank you.
And with that being said, really quick, just want to ask all the candidates, yes or no, if you were not the nominee, would you support the Republican Party nominee?
Yes, not only would I support the Republican Party nominee, but I would be grateful to volunteer for any of these candidates to provide my unique skill set to help the community. Thank you.
Yes, unless that nominee is Mark Smith, and then I will campaign against him and help the Democrats win. He would be far worse than anyone else who's running in this race. He is a traitor and a sellout, and so I would not support him. Anyone else?
Let's just leave it at that. That's not a tax on that can't defend themselves.
After the runoff is complete, because this race is going to go to a runoff, I will 100% support the nominee for the Republican Party.
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay. I guess I should have said yes, no, maybe instead, but yeah. Good answers. Thank you, guys. And again, that's when we determine whatever the primary is.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we do encourage everyone to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidates of your choice on June 9th or during any early voting, and of course, whenever those dates are made available to us. You can also use the League of Women Voters Vote 411 to check the status of your voter registration, to find your polling place, and to learn about more candidates and their positions. And candidates, if you've not already finished your survey,